Hope this is connecting properly. This is the first time I'm using the hosting part of the program, so welcome, welcome. I have Martin with me today. I don't know which side of the screen it's going to show up on. Right now, you're on that side.
Okay.
But yes, so Martin will be the host for today's webinar. We're going to be focusing on using inFlow Cloud at the job site. So he's going to be going through our desktop app, so the app on the Windows program, and then as well as showing a little bit of how it's going to look on the web app. So that's going to be our main focus today. Now, I see a lot of participants joining. So if you could just let us know if you can hear us okay, if everything's working. I just want to make sure that this is all going well. Fantastic. Okay, so it looks like we're getting a bunch of people saying everything's all good. We're going to give it another probably minute or so just to make sure more people can join before we get started. But Martin, I guess if you want to just try sharing your screen just to have it on our homepage so we can make sure that's working.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi,
Thank you.
everyone. I'm Martin from inFlow. I'm the account executive here, so I have the pleasure of working with new clients such as yourself to making sure that you guys have the right process in place. And today we're going to be covering the job site workflow. I'm going to share my screen really quick. This is actually my first webinar ever, so excuse me if I'm a little bit nervous. I'm going to share my screen now and go over feature by feature of the relevant aspects of operating a job site workflow on a day-to-day basis. I'm going to share my screen here.
And you're going to do great, by the way.
Thank you.
I believe in you.
Screen. There we go. Cool. So,
Fantastic.
Katya, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, yeah, I can see
Perfect.
everything perfectly. Yeah, I'd say let's give it another maybe 30 seconds. I'm just waiting to see if, yeah, our team can hear us properly as well on our side. So we're all good to go. Um, so I'll let you take it away, Martin.
Sounds good. Thank you, Katia. So yeah, let's get started. So the first thing when we actually sign into inFlow, we will look at something like this. This is the home page of the inFlow program. To get this specific Windows application, we'll simply go to our web app.inflowinventory.com, sign in with your account, whether that's your active account or your trial account, and you'll see this right here. And the layout is pretty much similar for the next little while. We'll be covering kind of both apps to kind of see what they both look like. For the majority, we will be running through in the Windows application. We will also hop back in the web app to kind of see the features as well. So right off the bat, when we can see in the home page, it's quite similar. We have the relationship on one side, or well, the relationship on either side, vendors on one side, customers on the other side, and in the middle we have the inventory, just like what we're seeing right here, right? Vendor bringing the materials into inventory, sales order, reserving the inventory, bring it over to the customer site, and we can also do the billing and the invoicing from the sales order here as well. Right. So right off the bat, let's hop into the relationship aspect of things. I'm going to open up my vendor and my customer. Just to quickly give you an example of the things that we can standardize per each relationship. So the things that probably won't change, right? Things like obviously their business name, things like their contact information, their different addresses, and also in terms of payment terms, discounts, and taxing the currency that you're being charged with or you're charging the customers. All those things can be standardized once for those specific relationship. So the next time when you pull up an order, when you select that relationship, everything here will be filled in. You don't have to fill it in, each time. And you can say multiple different addresses for each relationship here as well. There's also a lot of other extra info that you can keep, and previous order history and payment history for that specific relationship. And a little bit on the side, we have attachments right here as well on the vendors and customer side of the relationship. And this is simply for if you have any agreements, contracts with specific business relationships, this is essentially where you can keep a record of it so they're easily accessible. Right? And obviously, you can enter some remarks here as well. So for the vendor, this is pretty, straightforward. For the customers, over here, you can decide how do you want to classify your customers. Typically, um, each customer is actually a specific site. Um, then we can keep track of your point of contact for that specific site and also your different addresses that that specific site goes belong. So you can save different addresses for each customer, but by saving the actual site itself as one customer, you can essentially eliminate the step of specifying which addresses to actually fulfill each of your order from. And we'll see more of like what I mean when we hop into the sales order section of things. Okay, so hop into relationship. So before we actually hop into the sales order, which is probably a lot of the time what we're going to be operating out of on our day to day, which is simply reserving inventory from the warehouse and then fulfilling that over to the customer site. So before we do that, let's hop into the inventory side of things. And over here, we can keep track of various inventory data as we're going to cover them. And let's pick this specific thing, for example. So for this specific item, I've had a little image here. It is a specific piping product, and I've categorized it as my plumbing materials. So obviously, I have my product name here. I have my product type. There's 4 product types that we can choose from. Most of the time, it's probably going to be stock product. Sometimes it might be serialized product if there's any machinery that you're tracking serial numbers with. Like if you are installing a AC unit, for example, you might track serial numbers with that. Non-stock product and service product. Non-stock product, they can be things like your nuts and bolts. We don't really care how many thousands of nuts and bolts that we have. We know when the bucket runs low, and when it runs low, we can eyeball it to dump another bucket in. But we can still track, how much are we actually taking in and taking out. It's just for non-stop product, we wouldn't see an inventory data right here. Those value will actually show on the reporting side in terms of how much is taken out of the warehouse, how much is brought into the warehouse. For a service item, I have one created right here. These will be things like installation fees that we can add onto the line item of the invoice. So we can track the costs here and the different pricing. For each one of our items, we can have multiple different pricing here as well. Now, these different price lists, they can be customer specific, they can be seasonal, or they can be for any other reasons that we might have just a different sets of pricing for this product. The good thing with customer specific is we can lock this specific pricing down for a specific customer as part of their, as as just part of their standard. For example, in pedal car, I might, set their default price list as pedal car. So when I pick that customer to move some inventory over, they will actually get charged their pricing, right? And also, if there's any other attachments here as well, we can also set that up. Things like very specific measurements, any documentations that you might have with any machinery, any specific materials, you can always attach it right here. Any file would do. You can also attach a video file, and there's no limit in terms of how much you can attach right here. And we also have, extra info and the product vendor side of things. So on the product vendor side of things, we can keep track of multiple different vendors for a specific items. If it can come from multiple different sources, and we can choose which one do we prefer to buy from as a default vendor. Make sure to specify their vendor price and their vendor product code in case they're calling this thing something else. So that vendor product code will show on the purchase order. When they receive that purchase order, they'll know what you mean, even if you call it by a different name, because this code will show. And hopping back into the extra info here, we can keep track of the different remarks. This remarks is simply internal. Everything here that we see here is actually internal. It's not customer facing. Um, there's the different measurements. We can keep track of custom fields as well. And also units of measure. Sometimes, this might be helpful. For example, for this specific, plumbing item, I might keep track of individual units. I can type in any units right here. It's a free field. And let's call it each, right? EA. For my purchasing unit, let's say in Matt Plumbing Warehouse, they are charging me per dozen. That vendor cost is per dozen. So I can put in a dozen right here. It can be in cases, bags, or whatever the purchasing unit is. And then I can specify this ratio is 12 each. One thing to note, if we do specify a unit of measure, right? If you are purchasing items in a different unit than you are actually, allocating out to different sites, when we specify this units of measure, your vendor price that you have put in right here, this now refers to the price per purchasing unit. And this will take into this ratio into consideration when calculating your unit cost, your standard unit cost. So by default, the system uses moving average cost to get you your costing as you fulfill each sales order, as you pay for each sales order. You can also change that to first in, first out costing, last in, first out costing, or if you prefer that you have your own formula, you can also use manual adjustments as well, which is you specify what the cost is that you know of, and that won't change until you have updated it. So it's completely up to you. How do you want to, calculate your costing? For the sake of this example, I'm going to remove this right here. Oops. I'm going to remove this right here, and let's just track it in each. There we go. And the final thing regarding what we can keep track of each item is also their reordering settings. For example, if I click Edit Reorder Settings, I can turn this thing on. There's a little on button right here. Make sure to click on that for this location. And our reorder reminder is based on location. So what that means is, let's say if you keep track of, various different warehouses, each warehouse will have their own thresholds in terms of when to remind you to reorder or to replenish this stock. Now, despite how much you have in other warehouses, you might have thousands in other warehouses. But if you run below a threshold in this specific warehouse, you will still get reminded that, okay, for this specific warehouse, you need to replenish. And the default replenishment method I have set for this is when this runs below 25 units. And this 25 is based off of available quantity. Okay? And what I mean by that is it's going to take into reserved quantity into consideration. For example, if I have 100 units in inventory, somebody created a sales order to be shipped out to the customer site tomorrow, but it's not shipped out yet as of today, that requires 50 of that specific item. As soon as that sales order is created, there's 50 reserved, so I actually only have 50 available. So when the available quantity runs below 25 in this case, it's going to automatically notify me, hey, it's time to reorder another 50 units through the method of a purchase order to your default vendor, which is Matt's Plumbing Warehouse. All of this thresholds, all of this things, they can be specified by location. Right? Now I have other clients that have multiple different warehouses, but I have a main warehouse. So the default next step for the main warehouse might be to get it from the vendor, but for the secondary warehouse, when they run below a certain threshold, it may be a stock transfer to be prompted from the central warehouse over to the secondary warehouse, and then that might bring that central warehouse past a threshold in which they have to do another PO again. So it can all be kind of tied and streamlined like that.
Just a quick question, Martin. After the sales
Yes.
orders, we go through those. Will we be able to see the reorder settings again when we add? if we add additional locations?
Yes, we will.
Okay,
Yeah,
fantastic.
yes, we will. Yeah. So after the next thing I'm actually hopping to is the sales order. We'll do a little pause here to see if there's any questions from the group before we hop into the sales order side of things.
So far, nothing regarding what we've covered so far.
Cool.
So I think we're good to go. Yeah.
Sounds good. Cool. So we've covered the reorder settings. So right now we can see that since the reorder settings is at 25, all of our 60 units is available. There's no active sales order reserving the specific thing yet. So we know that this is good. This is still good. This hasn't hit the threshold yet. We don't have to reorder this thing yet. Right? Now, when we create a sales order, we can just go to the home page and just click on sales order. We can select the customer that we want to ship the inventory off of. And let's say we are getting some plumbing items. We need this specific item, and we also need this specific item, for example, and we need 10 of each that we know so far that this specific site needs. And then we can set the ship date to, let's say, tomorrow. This is supposed to be shipped out tomorrow, and we can save it right here. Over here, we can use the specific filter. We can add different filters here to see the list of orders that we have yet to ship out. For example, show me everything that's not fulfilled. We can see this thing, as part of it. And then we can also see what the requested ship date is. Show me everything that is supposed to be shipped out today. I got nothing. What about this week? This sales order number 3 now becomes part of this list to be shipped out this week. Over here, we can also keep track of various different columns as well. We can right click on the headers and choose what columns do we want to immediately see right here. What I've chosen is the order number and also the ship date. This ship date is blank right now because we have yet to ship this out, right? So the sales order side of things that we're looking at right here, this is probably the majority of like what we're going to be spending time on, reserving things from the warehouse and then fulfilling that to the customer site.
Mhm. And we do actually have one question of if we
Yes.
could provide an example with a back order. I don't know if we want to do it right now or if we want to do it at the very end, maybe of the call or
Yeah.
of the webinar, just to show how it would work with a back ordered um,
Yeah, we
order.
can actually yeah, we can actually cover that right now. What let's say for this one right here, despite, let's say we still have inventory on hand. Over here, let me save this first. If we don't have any inventory, actually, we'll run through that example later. Let me note that down. We'll create an item with 0 inventory on hand, and then therefore the back order option would actually show on the actual sales order itself. So let me note that down. Back order, Katia, if I forget, if you could remind me.
Yeah,
Thank
I'll
you.
definitely remind you.
Thank you. Some water. Cool. So over here, so let's say, fast forward the time, and the requested ship date is, today. Cool. Right now. So to pick this from the inventory, we can simply, pick it. We can autofill if we're picking the whole order, or we can actually decide, we're only picking this specific line first, and we're actually shipping this out first. And then we can hit save. So now this specific order, this is started to fulfill. It's still not invoiced yet. Those two statuses, your inventory and your financial aspect of this order, that's tracked separately. So until we, let's say, when we pick out the rest, and when we ship this out, we can hit save. And when this specific material request is complete, this will now be fulfilled. And then we can then send them that invoice for them to, pay for the material. This is a way to break down, what they're paying for by line item. And at the very end, you can also, um, oops, you can also input a installation fee as well as a service item. And then when the job site is done, you can mark this as done. And then this will provide them a line item invoice with the service item and the material items that they're essentially paying for. That's that's broken down for them. And when they pay it, just mark it as paid. If they put a deposit down, let's say they put 1,000 down, this will now be partially paid and fully fulfilled. So hopefully they pay for the remaining. So the reason why we keep track of, all those different statuses is for you to, get a clear view to make sure that nothing falls through the cracks. You can use these filter to kind of show me everything, that you have fulfilled, completely fulfilled order that hasn't yet been paid for using these different status filters right here. Right? So that took 10 each. Now let's say, after the job after the job continues, they require more inventory. Now we can pick out this existing order and just simply start adding things to it, and the numbers will update. Or, we can actually create a copy of this, remove this, or we can simply create a new sales order and repopulate essentially what they need. Let's say they need 50 of each this time. Save, go ahead and pick it, fulfill it, and mark it as paid. There we go. So now, for this specific job site, there's now two different shipments. There's a sales order number 3, sales order number 4. When we run the reports, we can actually see our costs and profits for each site by running a customer sales order by customer detail report.
Now, sorry, this is a little bit back to the inventory, but would you
Yes.
be able to quickly show our current stock screen as well
Yeah.
from the desktop app? So, Basirith was just asking how he can quickly see his quantity levels and, for
Mhm.
example, how many items are in negative inventory.
Okay.
So, one quick way would be through the current stock screen. Another way is you can run a report just to
Yeah.
see if that's available. And I know you're going to be covering reports at the very end of
Mhm.
the webinar today, so maybe we can show that as well.
Yeah, for sure. So right off the bat, if we are wanting to see like what the inventory level is for a specific thing, like right now for this specific item, we have sent out, 10 and we've sent out another 50. So right now this is at 0 on hand. Another things that we can do is go to the inventory side of things in our hamburger menu here, and we can go to current stock. And we can run this by location or as a default location, and here's everything that I have on hand. We can see that the quantities right there for each of my line items. I can right click here to see, what columns do I want to see in my current stock screen.
And just to answer Bazir's question, because he's
Mhm.
just looking for only negative items, so I don't know if we could filter just for that. I believe what you could do is you can sort your quantity
Yeah.
column, exactly what Martin you're doing, and then you would see all the negative items sorted
Mhm.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in this case, if we are dealing with negative inventory, so those will probably be, I think, what we're getting after is knowing what to back order.
Mhm. And right now, a lot of people, I guess, are really interested in and hoping for a back order report,
Uh-huh.
something that quickly just makes everything concise, and you can see all of that on one report. Right now, I think it would just be through the sales orders, and
Hmm.
then seeing based on your numbers where your status is as well.
Hmm.
But I will definitely, for everyone kind of posting about that, I will. Add that to our feature request page, so and comment on your
Hmm.
feedback, and we'll include your emails as well. If you could just actually even send us an email to support@inflowinventory.com if you guys have any other feature requests so that we can take note of those. But yeah, sorry. Thanks again for
Cool.
the
Yeah.
little
So I
introduction.
think a way that back order could work, and please correct me if I'm wrong here,
Mhm.
Katia, is for the items that we usually work on a back order basis. We don't keep residual inventory on hand. Can we set the reorder point to 0? That way, when there's a sales order and when there's something to be prompted in the reorder report, it'll also break that down into its own vendors, and then we can decide how much to actually back order.
In a way, yes. I think it would be more for active back order, let's
Active
say.
back
Like,
order. Okay,
yeah,
I see.
something that I'm assuming that's what everyone's kind of hoping for. But
Mhm.
I know Chad, you had mentioned it, and I think um, Lewis, you're mentioning it as well. So if you guys have any more feedback specific to what you were hoping for, just
Yeah.
post it in the comments, and we'll share it with the team.
Yeah, I guess this is a good time to kind of run through the kind of a back order thing as well. So,
Mhm.
so for example, right here, I have sold out, every single one of this specific inventory that I have on hand. So right now the quantity is 0, right? We have sent out 10 and then we have sent out 50. That takes out all the 60 that we're starting with. So over here, we can actually create a sales order. I believe if we do this, so for the back order side of things, let's say they need 10. We'll actually see this little red sign. There might be other times that you see a yellow sign as well. And what those two means is if you see a red sign, it simply means that you just simply don't have enough stock on hand to fulfill this order, which in a back order scenario, that is to be expected. If you see a yellow sign here, a little yellow exclamation mark, it means that you have enough stock to fulfill this specific order. There's also other active sales orders right now that's reserving some stock from here, but um, but if you fulfill this specific order, you are going into the reserve stock of the other order. So you're not able to fulfill both essentially without making another purchase. Right? And over here, I have, so as you can see, right now I'm starting off with 0 inventory and they need 10. Under this little button right here, back order. Oops, cannot be split because, oops, sorry. Create PO right there. Right off the bat, it takes what we needed for that specific order. It creates the purchase order to its own according vendor. And here we can decide we're shipping this to our warehouse. And then this is where we can create this specific purchase order. And this is what the purchase order would look like. Right? I know they look similar. A rule of thumb is if it's brown, it's a PO. If it's green, it's a sales order. It's color coded like that. And just like the sales order side of things, we can decide what columns that we want to put, and we can use the different filters here to see the exact list of purchase orders that we want to see. For back orders, this is also going to say it is created from sales order number 5, at which point we can send out this specific purchase order, and this will be in PDF. So they need 10 units of this specific vendor code. This is what we're calling it. This is what they're calling it. And this is a different address. And in our scenario, um, I've left this blank, but your logo will show up right here and your company info will show up right here. This is also reconfigurable as well. If you have your own design already, feel free to check out our other videos regarding customization and like custom documents, and other aspects as well, that we have done before. And we simply email this order or print out this order, um, to to essentially send this to the vendor. So right at the bat, same thing with the sales order side of things. When we have paid for, just mark it as paid. This will be in paid status and unfulfilled. If you put a small amount down as a deposit, this will be in partially, and this will be unfulfilled. It is really breaking down into those detailed statuses like that. So make sure that nothing falls through the cracks. So if we expect this to, let's say, arrive at a specific time, we can then decide right here. Hypothetically speaking, let's say this is supposed to arrive today. I know we just ordered today. Over here, we can select our request ship date. What are we expecting today? Let's save this. We can see that this purchase order has now made this list of what we can be expecting today. So when this order arrives, we can then go to the receive tab. We can hit autofill if we know we can hit autofill, or we can hit fulfilled if we know that all of the things that are right there. If we're dealing with a purchase order with a lot of different line items, chances are it's hard to eyeball them to see that whether they're all there or not. So simply count what we have actually received. Let's say this, count it, and there's 9 here. Physically, it might look like it's all there, especially if you're dealing with a large line items. Simply count what's there. When you save it, inFlow will let you know if there's anything else that you're missing that you're supposed to be receiving. Right? If there's any discrepancies between what you receive and what you order. And the receive date, this will also automatically populate as well. So hopefully just a miscount. We have indeed received them all. And this is what we will see. Coming back into the inventory right here, we can see that this quantity is now updated here as well. And this quantity is always explained by movement history. We also have an order history tab. This order history will just show orders. It'll also show, your quantity on hand versus reserved. So I have on hand, I have 10, reserved, I have 10, which makes sense because it is this sales order right here. Mark it as fail and fulfill that. Now this is back to 0, and we can now see this from the movement history side of things as well.
Mhm.
Back to 0.
And one point, because Lewis was asking, I guess, how you could keep track of the back ordered sales orders on, I think, the mobile app. I think that's what you meant by portable. So one way I was suggesting is adding it in the order number, maybe some kind of indicator, like you could even put like the letter B, just so that you can quickly filter for it in the sales order list on the mobile app. I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
Martin, are there any other suggestions for maybe how to keep track of that if you're on, let's say, the web or mobile app, trying to quickly find what orders are on back order?
Yeah, that's a great question. In terms of having it show up on the mobile app for you to see, okay, amongst let's say if I'm on my mobile app and I see a list of my purchase order, what amongst these are actually back orders? I would actually do exactly what you just described. You can decide, to put a little thing here, B-PO, so we can do a little back order PO, and then you can sort it like that.
Mhm,
And then that's how you can differentiate and then filter from that list of, all of your back ordered sales orders and purchase orders only. And one thing to note about the mobile app is the mobile app is more for on the go. So um, which means that regarding things like analytics, like reporting side of things, those would more be things that we would be pulling on the computer application itself. The mobile app's more for on the go. You can create vendors, customers, sales orders, purchase orders, and check how your inventory levels is currently being allocated, across with your warehouse and across different locations, right from there. And you can also do mobile picking as well to receive purchase order or to pick out sales orders, to mark those orders in pick status and then mark them as shipped. Right here, coming back ordered. Cool. So now we have actually, fully utilized this specific thing. The next thing that we can see is actually the reordering setting. As we can recall, over here, we have set this as a threshold. This is at 0. It is well below the threshold. So where do we find the list? Well, that list can actually be emailed to you at your chosen frequency. If we go into the web app, if you go to options and we go to oh yeah, yeah, first tab, personal settings, then we can hit edit notification settings for low stock. Here we can choose how often do I want to get reminded to reorder. Maybe it's every Monday to Friday at 6 a.m., whatever your time zone is, at 6 a.m., send me the list. Right? In terms of what's on the list, we know that that piping item is on the list because the available quantity is below the threshold, for that location. And I can save it like that. So that will automatically be emailed to me. And if we do want to run that list proactively, this is what we will see on the email. We'll hover over inventory, go to reorder stock, and over here we can see the items that we actually do need to reorder that has fallen below the threshold. So if you have a lot of different items that has below the threshold, depending on your standard next steps, inFlow will organize them to their according vendors for you. So you don't have to, sort what's coming from who. Then you can just click this specific vendor. It's going to generate one purchase order for each vendor. And over here, we can see what is our current anticipated quantity, our reorder point, and our reorder quantity. Right? Since we're starting at 0, let's call this, 75, and I'm gonna call this 75 as well. You can order right there. You're not stuck with the, next step that you have previously saved, and we can hit reorder, and this will simply generate another purchase order here, and then thus removing this item from your reordering list. If I've saved this, and the reason is because it also keeps track of your incoming quantity. I have 0 on hand right now, but I have 75 units on order that's supposed to arrive right now. So this will remove it from your reminder list in your reordering. And it's the same thing. When you pay for it or partially pay for it, just mark it as such. When you have fulfilled it, just mark it as such.
Perfect. I mean, so far, no additional questions. I think Iliano from our team is helping us answer some questions in the chats as
Oh,
well.
perfect.
So, yeah.
Thank you, Iliano.
So, shout out to him. But
Yes.
yeah, I think we can keep moving forward, I guess, into, I don't know if you want to show more on the web app side of the program as well, or if we want to
Yeah,
go
for
into
sure. I can,
reports.
yeah, I can kind of cover that as well.
Hmm.
I think I would presume for the majority we have a Windows computer, but on
Hmm.
the web app side, as we've all seen in the process that we've seen so far, create a new purchase order, in the product list, this is what the inventory aspect would look like. A couple of things that are a bit different from the web app versus a desktop app. Actually, there's other aspect that's a bit different as well. But in terms of the product side of things, like this doesn't have the actual movement history and like the order history tab right off the bat. So if you do have access to a Windows computer, be sure to download the Windows application. As regarding things like that, it just might make things easier.
Hmm. I mean, there is the option of running reports to get that information on
Yes.
the web app, but yeah, obviously, if you do have a Windows computer, the desktop app can show that just through the product
Yeah.
page directly.
Yeah, and in terms of, the actual functionality itself, it's just kind of like on a parallel platform. They are all connected. One thing to note, they are all connected. Your mobile app, your desktop app, your browser app, those are all connected to the cloud database. Meaning if somebody made an adjustment or any changes on a specific application, when you refresh, you'll see that immediately on your end as well, despite which application you're using. Right? So same thing, we can create a new sales order and select the customer, and everything here will be standardized as we've seen on the desktop application. Um, Same thing on the vendor side of things as well. When you create a new purchase order, select this purchase order and then add the different line items right here. Right? So before we hop into reporting, I just want to make a quick side note that the workflow that we saw just now, this is probably the more you know simpler generic side of a job site workflow. I've worked with other clients before that likes to break things down into further details. For example, they might be tracking their truck or trailer as a location as well, and there's always things that's in that specific truck that's visiting multiple sites, at which point they'll simply create that truck, let's call it Bob's truck, as a location, and they'll do a stock transfer from the central warehouse over to Bob's truck. And as Bob's truck is unloading in the different sites, they can do a stock transfer from Bob's truck to site one to site two, or do a sales order that picks the items from Bob's truck over for this site one and over to site two. Right? We'll see what that looks like over here. We can see the stock transfer here as well. For example, from my default locations on my central warehouse, I can say the two location. This can be to, like a Bob's truck, or this can be just simply to a customer site. If you do, put some equipment as well, and you want to keep track of where your equipment is across the different sites. If an equipment at site two is required, then they can see that along other sites, my closest sites, whether or not they have that equipment, they can check that inventory level on the mobile app. Right? And I can just call it, let's say, pedal car site. I can add this right here. Whoops. Add new location, pedal car site. And directly from here, I might grab my equipment, equipment one unit. And if you do track sub location of where this item belongs, it'll say, okay, pick it from this location. When they receive it, they'll be able to receive it at that location. And then you can decide, okay, when is this equipment supposed to be sent over? You can date this as well. And similarly use these kind of filters to filter what is supposed to be transferred out to, this specific site today, tomorrow, this week. When you send the transfer, you can just hit send transfer. It'll move it into in transit status. And when you receive the transfer, you can just mark it as received. So at any time, if I go to my inventory, I'm going to say this. If I go to my inventory and, whether I'm on my mobile app, I have my little tablet with me, I can look at my equipment because I need some. I can see, okay, I have 10, like we still have 10 total equipments, which still makes sense. But I need, one specific equipment. I'm closest to the pedal car site. So I'm going to give, that project manager a call. Hey, are you using this equipment? Because I know that there's one over there at that site that I might just be able to use quickly, for example. But this will show you how they're being distributed right now. Right. And there's other ways that we can keep track of the job site workflow as well. It's impossible to cover all of them, in very specific details in this call. So if you have, any questions, feel free to, get a trial. We have a 14-day trial here. One of our team members will reach out. It may be me, who knows? And then, we'll get through that first call just to make sure that, we understand, the things that you require, and just to make sure that this is something there's a way to actually make this work for you. And if there is, that's great. We can see, if you like that method, and if there's not a way, we'll let you know immediately, and then possibly suggest, other options that might work better for you here as well. Right. So yeah, don't hesitate to get in touch. So I'm gonna pause here a little bit if there's any questions before we hop into the reporting.
Mhm. So there was just a quick question from Chad because he just bought
Hmm.
the barcode scanner,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, I don't think we'll be able to actually show the barcode scanner today because we'd have to connect it up to be able
Hmm.
to share its screen. But in terms of using barcodes to kind of implement it into the same process that you've showed so far,
Yeah.
I guess if you could just focus a little bit on the barcode field and how we could potentially use that a little bit in the sales orders as well.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. So if we're using this application, I'm not sure which, specific model of scanners that you have, but any USB, whether that's wired USB or a wireless USB that's connected, like this mouse, this is a
oh,
wireless USB.
he was referring to the smart scanner.
Oh, the smart scanner. Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Cool, cool, cool.
so
So
it is going to be
directly,
different with the platforms.
okay, I see. Yeah, on the smart scanner itself, you'll be able to access the actual mobile app. So when you access, let's say, when you are picking out, things that you would need for a specific sales order with that smart scanner. You'll be able to add line items from the list. There's also, you will see an option that says scan items, which is essentially scan the barcodes to add them on the list,
Mhm.
right? So that part should be pretty straightforward, and you can use the scanning part portion to receive purchase order, to populate purchase order, and also to populate sales order as we discussed, and also to pick sales orders as we discussed, and also in other aspect as well that will require you to to actually input a a line item. For example, you're also going to see the add stock, remove stock. For example, something accidentally gets damaged in a warehouse. That happens. You can immediately scan that barcode right there to add it to the remove stock field and then add a little remark directly from there.
Mhm.
Since you're using the smart scanner, one thing I want to note is since the mobile app is more for on the go features regarding things like stock transfer, as we just saw, if you're operating from a computer, it'll break it down into open, in transit, and completed status. On the mobile app, it's not going to break it down into all those different status. It's more for on the go. If you're loading things into your truck, when you hit complete, that stock transfer is done. That inventory has moved from your warehouse to your second location that you're transferring to. Right? That's also something to keep in mind. Right? Do we have a webinar before on the mobile app?
Yeah, and I had linked it in the
Yes.
comments as well. So we have the webinar, and Iliano had posted our KBs or knowledge base on how to use the barcode scanners and the smart scanner specifically. Um, but obviously, all of this kind of gets interconnected between the platforms. So if you're
Hmm.
using the mobile app and you add a new product and you scan the barcode, when you're on the desktop app, you'll be able to see it in that barcode field. So the same page that Martin is on the product page, there's a barcode field just at the top. You'll see your barcode in there. And then if you do have any other, like you mentioned, USB scanners that you're working with as well, connected to your computer,
Yeah.
that will kind of do the same thing, just from the desktop side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there shouldn't be regarding a USB scanner for the ones that do have it. There shouldn't be any extra step in connecting that to the inFlow program. It's just essentially like a mouse. You plug it in, and you're able to just start scanning away. Um, Now, since we're talking about barcodes, if your items do come with, and I have to mention, consistent barcodes for the same item, then essentially you can use the existing barcodes and then you can import that data right here. If you don't have existing barcodes and you would like to and you would like inFlow to essentially generate that barcode for you, then right off the bat you can type in anything here. And also when you go to options under settings, under barcodes, you can hit generate, and that will bring you to the settings page to how you want to set up your barcodes, right? For example, I'm just going to pull this here. Automatically generate barcodes when saving or editing products. I might just create this. So for the ones that you do import it with an existing barcodes, it's not going to overwrite that. But for the ones that you have created with blank field in the barcode, then it's going to fill in the blank using your desired, using your desired format. For example, barcode 001AB, for example. And I can hit generate barcodes. So when I do so, coming back here, going to my other items, I can see, am I missing something here, Katia?
Sorry, which portion of it?
Yeah, I'm just gonna
When
hit,
you set to generate the barcodes on the desktop side?
yeah.
So on the
So I have
desktop,
turned this on.
yeah, so it might need you to, when you do company settings adjustments sometimes,
Oh,
like
okay.
barcodes, it might ask you to like log out and re-log in to refresh it. But when you're in the settings of the desktop app, it would be right below barcodes generate.
Yeah,
Yep.
and then that brought me to, yeah, this page right here. And at which point I hit generate barcodes and I turn this on.
Yeah, so when you have it there though, it might ask because you're working on the two different platforms. When you change a setting like that,
Okay.
it sometimes requires you to just sign off and log back in because you're making a larger change in the system.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
I'm thinking that might be or like just refreshing it sometimes can also make it work.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm gonna, create a new product right here.
Hmm.
New item. Call it a stock product. And I'm gonna hit save. Okay. Yeah. So I do need to log out.
Hmm. Oh, it's not typing.
Oops. Thank you.
No worries. So if we, yeah, um, give me a second. If we go back to the web app, just want to, and then,
Oh, sorry. This is
yeah, I
my
was gonna
dumb
say
mistake.
different account.
This is my dumb mistake. Yeah. I'm sorry. This is my first time. And
No worries. Because I was like,
okay.
something's off. It should be
Yeah.
working now.
My apologies, everybody. This is
We work with way too many test accounts
yes. I'm just gonna go into
in the company settings.
company settings and
Hmm.
generate barcodes. There we go. Cool. So BC 001 AB. Whoops. Generate barcodes.
And even if you show how to add an item from the web app, because I think that will be the quickest refresh.
True. Yeah. So right
Yeah.
now we can. Yeah. So make sure you use the same account. Right. But now we can see the different barcodes generated right here. And then we can then print that out. If you go here to print barcodes, we can just print them off all in bulk, you know cut it out, put that on your bin locations where this item belongs. We also have an integration with Dymo label printers as well, so you can feel free to go ahead and design your own layout. Make sure to get a Dymo v.8, and when you save it as a layout, it should be dot label, and then you can load that on here.
Mhm.
Right. Cool.
Perfect. And then I guess if you want to move on to the reports, because I
Yeah.
know we're running a little short on time.
Cool. Cool.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and in terms of the reporting, it's impossible to cover them all. We have a lot of different reports right here, but let's say we are want to run a, a sales by product detail report or sales order profit report, right? We can click this and then we can select by customer. Show me by this specific customer or this specific site all of my only, just fulfilled status, maybe all of my paid for aspects, and I can also add other filters here as well. I can click more to see the columns that I actually want to see. So let's say I want to see the order number. I want to see the PO status, the payment status. Actually, I already know that they're all fulfilled, but I want to see my cost of goods sold. I want to see my cost, and I want to see my gross profit here as well. And how I want this to be grouped by is group by customer, group by site, right? And first sort by, sure, order number, why not? After I configure this, I can hit generate a report, and this will populate the desired data for me. If I do run specific reports on a weekly, daily, or monthly basis, or just at a periodic basis, we can always preset this. So for example, this is my uh, budget mine collectible BMC report, for example. And then I can save this as a report and add all the previous settings that we saw as the as a as part of my standard report. And we'll see what that looks like. There we go. Cool. So right now we can see my gross profit is, it's around 900 bucks. We're not working with realistic numbers, so just this is just a concept. We have our cost right here and our sales amount right here, and break down into all the different sales orders. If you want to see how to break down by line items, then we would pull the sales order detail report and using the same filters. So I'm going to add the BMC report over to my report. This is just to show that the next time I want to run a specific report, that's my monthly cost report or, things like that, I can just go to my reports, add a little description here to describe what this report's about, and then I can hit generate here as well. That brings me over to this page. All of our reports that can be saved in, Word document, PDF. You can print it out and you can save it as right here. CSV if you want to run some graphics, on your usage, Excel, Word document, PDF, things like that for you to keep your own records and for you to do maybe further analytics um, using spreadsheets on that.
And then Bezareth was also asking if we could just show a report for guessing negative inventory since we're in the report section. So I'm assuming we would just run the inventory report for our quantities.
Yeah,
And then we could also do a search
yeah,
within the report itself for anything with a negative sign.
yeah. So if you if the question you're trying to answer is, what are all my line items right now that is in negative inventory, right off the bat, I would say instead of configuring a report, the easiest way to get the answer to that specific question is just go to your current stock and then filter by quantity. You'll see a negative here first. You can always right click and export this to CSV directly from here.
Mhm.
Now, if we're
And
using a real, yeah, sorry,
sorry, Martin. I was actually, if we could go back to the current stock screen, because Phil
yeah,
from our team had a different suggestion as well. Is if we add another filter in the
mhm,
search, it's going to be the quantity to, I believe,
yeah,
and then we add that to 0.
0. There we go.
Then you would be able to also filter for just negative quantity. And
Yeah,
at the moment, I don't think we have any negative quantity in the inventory. But from
yeah,
here, then you can export that into a CSV. If that's the goal, Bazirith, of running a report is to then be able to export that data, this, like Martin said, would be the fastest way.
yeah. You can also run, various different inventory reports as well. And then, oops, this is the summary report. Let's say inventory details report. And then, you can run it by products and you can sort it by the quantity, but that will show you like the whole thing. So the fastest way to answer that specific question would actually be in the negative stock. And yeah, by the way, thank you, Phil.
Perfect. Yeah, and if there's any specific issues that you may be having with running a report or not seeing something on the screen, I definitely recommend reaching out to us at support@inflowinventory.com, just because it's going to be easier for us to be able to then interact with you and get some more information on what kind of error is happening.
Yeah.
If we need screenshots, we'll just be able to communicate over email instead. So I
Mhm.
find that if you guys have some kind of specific question that's just about your database or an issue that you've noticed that you're happening. I know, Bazirith, you're saying it's not really showing up for you. Reach out to us at support@influinventory.com and we'll be able to help better that way.
Yeah. And yeah, one thing I wanted to note again, the workflow that we saw today, this is more on the generic side of the workflow because we do have, a lot of we do have a mixed group, of our clients here. So to see that whether this would be work for you, inflow is versatile like that. You can break this down into different details that would make more sense for you, as well. And I've done that for other clients of mine. Katia has done the same thing.
Mhm.
So yeah, be sure to get in touch, if you feel like we've missed anything here, and we're more than likely to actually guide you to the next step.
Yeah. And that's perfect. I mean, and we're right on time too.
Cool.
So I guess if there's any last minute questions, we'll wait another minute or two. So just post them in the chat, and then we'll try to answer them. But again, if there's anything else today, like Martin said, that we didn't cover, or you have a very specific question, please reach out to us, because we'll definitely be happy to help. I know Iliano has been in the comments messaging today as well. The one thing with our chats is I'm not sure if I'm able to see your email addresses. I think I might be able to find that out. So we'll try to reach out to you guys as well. With any feature requests that we've heard today, we'll post that in our feedback channel, and we'll share that with our team, so that eventually we might be able to add these new features into the system. But thank you again, Martin.
Oh, it's
Very
my pleasure.
informative webinar.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
But
Yeah, it's this is yeah this has been fun for me too. This is my very first webinar, and yeah, thank you everybody for taking your time out of the day and then to actually join the session, and hopefully we'll get to chat soon.
yeah, awesome. So, yeah, again, thank you guys. We're going to be ending it now, and we will be posting a recording on our YouTube channel. So you'll be able to find it on our YouTube, hopefully by tomorrow. It usually does take a little bit of editing. Shout out to usually Carisha, who does that for us.
Yeah,
So we'll have that in there, and then we have a webinar page on our website. So it's just if you go to inflowinventory.com and you scroll all the way to the bottom, there's going to be a section that's called webinars. So we'll usually post the links in there as well so that you can access all the previously recorded ones.
exactly.
And if there's anything else you want to watch too.
And be sure to like and subscribe.
Awesome. Well, I hope everyone has a fantastic day. Also, Iliano just posted that webinar page in our chats, so you guys can go there. But thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, everyone. Thanks again, Martin, and for the
Thank you.
rest of the team who had any feedback to
Yeah, thank you,
provide.
Iliano. Thank you, Phil, and yeah, again, thanks for
Yeah, thanks, guys. Okay, hope everyone has a great day.
take
Bye
it
bye.
easy.